Welcome back to State of the Union. Democrats are promising a fight over President Trump's agenda. What will that actually look like? Here with me now is Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Thank you for being here, sir. You just heard my conversation with the White House Budget Director, Russ Vought, about the president's tax and spending bill in front of the Senate, which is something you're going to be dealing with this coming week. What is your response?
Well, this Republican budget bill is an absolute disaster for the country, in particular for middle class and poor people, because it kicks 15 million people, working Americans mainly, off of their health care. And for what? In order to finance a tax cut, the majority of which is going to corporations and billionaires. $1 trillion of that tax cut goes to the richest 1%. It also adds enormously to the deficit. And I heard him try to claim that that's not true. It's just unreal the amount of gaslighting this administration is doing. I mean, it is a fact. The difference between passing this bill and not passing this bill is the addition of $3 trillion to the national debt. And that's not me saying that. That's the credit rating agencies that impact our entire economy. Moody's just downgraded the United States credit. They didn't do that under Joe Biden. They did that under Donald Trump because they look at this bill. They look at the attack on the middle class and the diminution in spending power that will come with it for the middle class and the deficits. And they say that if implemented, this bill is going to make the American economy much weaker. So this bill is what it is. It is just an attempt to enrich Donald Trump's billionaire class, all his Mar-a-Lago friends, his corporate friends, at the expense of ordinary Americans. And they should just tell the truth about it.
You mentioned Moody's because you mentioned that. I did want to ask you, my understanding is that the downgrade of the credit rating is about long-term debt. Democrats and Republicans have contributed to that.
Well, but they're making that determination now because they are looking at Donald Trump's plan to add this massive new amount onto the debt. And let's also be clear that, during the Biden administration, his big legislative achievements outside of the context of COVID relief actually declined the deficit, whether it was the Inflation Reduction Act or the infrastructure bill, which had significant new revenue in it as well. Overall, those bills reduced, not added to the debt. So Moody's made this determination now rather than during the Biden administration because they see this coming bill as one of the biggest additions to debt and one of the biggest attacks on the sort of middle-class consumer power in this country in recent memory.
Senator, your colleague from Iowa, Joni Ernst, told voters at a town hall, quote, "We are all going to die." That was in response to concerns from constituents about some of what you're talking about these cuts to Medicaid. Then she has kind of doubled down. She had a bit of a sarcastic apology. Watch this.
I made an incorrect assumption that everyone in the auditorium understood that, yes, we are all going to perish from this earth. So I apologize. And I'm really, really glad that I did not have to bring up the subject of the tooth fairy as well.
What's your response?
Yeah, I mean, Joni's a colleague, somebody I've worked with, but it does tell you a lot about this bill. I think everybody in that audience knows that they're going to die. They would just rather die in old age at 85 or 90 instead of dying at 40. And the reality is that when you lose your health care, you are much more at risk of early death. And when rural hospitals close because of this bill, when drug treatment clinics close in Iowa and rural America because of this bill, more people will die at a younger age. So the reality is this bill is about life and death. And for what? I mean, I guess that's the problem here for many of us, is that they're cutting Medicaid, throwing 15 million people off their health care in order to fund a tax cut for the super wealthy and for corporations. That is just fundamentally immoral. It's immoral. It's unethical. I don't understand why they're doing it, except that Donald Trump only really knows billionaires. He only knows corporate CEOs. And so his instructions to Republicans are reward them, help them, and no one else. I wish Joni and others saw the immorality of what they're doing.
I do want to ask on a different topic about the president and the fact that he hosted a private dinner for top investors of his cryptocurrency last month. I know you've been very outspoken about the president's use of his meme coin, calling it corruption on steroids and more. But I want to talk about the consequence of Congress really not legislating regulations about this crypto and so many other issues. Is there some, I'm not saying that Congress is culpable for what the president is doing, but on issues like this, does there need to be regulation?
Absolutely. And we have a chance right now in the United States Senate to stop the president's corruption. Not coincidentally, we are debating in the Senate a bill to regulate cryptocurrency. In fact, one of the very cryptocurrencies that Donald Trump is issuing as part of his corruption scheme. The problem is the existing version of that bill exempts the president from the ethics requirements. It says that it's unethical for me to issue or market a stablecoin, but it's okay for the president to do it. That's not something any Democrat should vote for. We have a chance to demand to amend that bill before final passage to make sure that the president is treated just like every other member of Congress, just like every other member of his administration. So yes, if Congress passes a bill in the next few weeks that exempts the president of the United States from the ethics requirements around the issuance of cryptocurrency, then yes, we will have no one to blame but ourselves for this, at least this specific kind of corruption. So we have a chance to get this right in the United States Senate this coming week, and I hope the Democrats and Republicans can stand up and say it's just not right for the president to essentially be asking for people, including foreigners, to put money in his pocket in order to get them access to the White House. That is not okay for a member of Congress, for a mayor. It's not okay for a president.
Okay, we will be watching that. Thank you so much, Senator. Appreciate you coming on.